Hello, Adam. It's great to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, James.
No worries. So obviously you're IT director at GCC at the moment, but can you give us a bit of a rundown of how you got into IT and cybersecurity?
Yes, so I've been working in IT for what feels like a lifetime, and I guess practically is. More than 25 years I've been working in IT. I've worked in a number of different industries, so logistics and supply chain, commodities trading, ocean going shipping, local government, retail. So I've had like a really wide exposure to lots of different um, ways that IT is used to approach business challenges, and of course, security is a very large part of that.
Yeah, so when was the first time you came across ourselves, ThreatSpike?
So actually, it was in my previous role. Where I worked before, which is a company called WFS, which is one of the world's largest air cargo handlers.
Hmm.
Um, when I joined the organization, there it already had been implemented ThreatSpike, but only the base functionality. So I'd had a call with our CISO at that organization, Olivier, and he took me through uh, what ThreatSpike is and how it is used on the different endpoints that we had in the environment. And I then spent some time with some of the technical resources of ThreatSpike and discussed further like some of the additional functionality that we hadn't implemented, and then just realized that this entire rich tapestry of product functionality that we weren't using. And then I took it upon myself to make my life easier, obviously, as I was responsible for the cybersecurity for the UK operation at WFS to find out ways that we could leverage this functionality that existed
Mm.
in ThreatSpike. So that's
So,
where I had my first exposure.
and I guess it was at that point when you started looking at all the functionality you weren't using, you thought, geez, these are a bit different to other companies I've used in the past, right?
Absolutely, because one of the things that and this is quite relevant for where I found myself when I joined GCC Services a year and a half ago, is that because there's so much functionality with ThreatSpike and new functionality being added very, very frequently, is that if you come into an environment that is immature and you don't have products that can help you with certain things, so let's say, for example, data loss prevention.
Yeah.
Um, if I don't have a product for that in my new environment, and I don't have a product for EDR, and so on and so forth. Obviously, these are just two examples. Um, I would need in the old days, before knowing about ThreatSpike, I'd have to go and evaluate different products to achieve the results that I would need to achieve. But instead, like by choosing a product like ThreatSpike, I'm able to jump many, many steps ahead and avoid all that fun that you would have, with
Mm.
scanning for new technology and then, having pilots and things like that. And then, of course, all the getting budget for it is undoubtedly a challenge in any organization for any technology product. So I was able to bring our operations here in GCC Services many, many steps forward in one transaction, which was to implement ThreatSpike across our estate.
Yeah, I think it helps having awkward conversations with budget holders where you're saying, "Oh, I know we bought this, but now we need this." It can get awkward for you, awkward for everyone within your organisation. So having it all in one place must be useful. Which features do you find the most useful on the ThreatSpike Blue platform?
So there's, I mean, there's loads that is useful. I mean, some of the things that we use, and was the thing that I had used to seal the deal with our management and get budgetary approval. So that I'll use this as the first example. So this is the disk lockout functionality.
Okay.
So what that means is that using BitLocker, the ThreatSpike agent is able to enforce a BitLocker pin on the hard drive of the device and then forces a reboot. And the custodian of that device cannot sign back in because obviously a PIN is required from BitLocker. Now you
Mm.
can achieve that, doing this, with some other third-party products. But in the demo, I had my own laptop in the boardroom with the Xcode, and I pushed out that request from ThreatSpike, and then they saw like within 60 seconds that my machine suddenly like started shutting down, and it restarted, and I couldn't get back in. And I had not noted down what the PIN number was. So it was quite funny at the time because it took me an hour to get back in. But the but it was a very effective demonstration on just a small piece of the functionality, but it meant something to our management, and some of the challenges that we had, like around devices that don't get returned, perhaps when people leave the organization, lots of other things. And beyond that, we make a lot of use of the web filtering capability that's there with ThreatSpike. Um, we did also at WFS, but we use it slightly differently in here, where we are able to prevent certain websites from being accessed, and there is also categorization within the product as well. So if you don't want to go and manually like pick websites yourself, then ThreatSpike has different categories, like for example for adult content or
Yeah.
gambling, etc. So that's another one, and then also uh, the ability to prevent the uploading of files to different websites. So this one is like key from a data loss prevention perspective, because as an organization, we use Microsoft Stack, so OneDrive,
Mm.
SharePoint, etc. And given that when we have projects that end in different countries that we operate in, then normally these contracts are then taken over by a competitor. So the person that would be employed by us is very likely to be rehired by the successor of that contract. And then in the old days, they just take all the data with them, either copying things straight off of USB
Mm.
or uploading to Dropbox or WeTransfer, you send it, and all those different sites there. So we make heavy use of that, and similarly also with the USB blocking. I mean, these are the things that sort of make sense to management and give them, that sort of comfort that we're protecting our data. But beyond that, then there's also where we as an IT department gain the most benefit is from the ability to know exactly what's going on endpoints. We make heavy use of the EDR
Mm.
controls that are there, the alerting for various security incidents. We are able to enforce compliance to a number of policies, even for machines that are not domain joined, which can be challenging if you're operating across many different many different countries. In some cases, with very poor bandwidth, so you can't have domain connectivity if you're using like a 5 megabit VSAT connection. But we're able to like have the same controls on our endpoints using ThreatSpike, without then the heavy lifting of then having those endpoints connected back
Mm.
to where we have our domain controllers. So I mean, these are just a few examples, but there are many more things that we use ThreatSpike for.
Understood. I know the email gateway feature has been very popular with the customers recently as well, which is something we've recently rolled out.
So that's something that we will be looking at in the coming month or two. Another thing actually that I didn't mention, but is now probably like a pivotal thing for us with ThreatSpike is that we don't expose any of our applications directly to the internet. So as a result, currently, if you need to access an enterprise application, we use there's a feature within the ThreatSpike agent that allows for endpoint tunneling. So in a nutshell, that means then that I don't have to have VPN clients installed on the devices or using another third party application that would allow access into like our environment. So we're able to do that through ThreatSpike. And again, this allows us to control at a very granular level who can access our systems, our data. But should we wish to expose applications, and that time is probably going to come soon due to some integration requirements that we might have with third parties, there's also the web application firewall functionality that has now been added to the product that we have started some testing on recently as well. And that one I'm particularly excited about, rather than taking a WAF product from from Azure. Again, that's just another example of how we're able to do many different things with one vendor and one product. And we're not when ThreatSpike add new things on, and this is something that I love. If something new gets added in terms of functionality, it's not, there's no upsell. So it's not like, okay, Adam, like if you want to have the email gateway service, okay, that's an add-on. Or you want the WAF service, that's an add-on. You want the tunneling, that's an add-on. That's not the case. So that it pretty much everything gets added to the base product. So I know that, okay, I can add all these extra capabilities, but I don't need to keep revisiting my budget and go with the begging bowl to management and say, look, I need this, but it's not in this year's plan. And have those difficult conversations. So it's really something that I appreciate a lot about
And how
ThreatSpike
do you,
organization.
yeah, not having to buy all these different point solutions must be a lifesaver for you and your organization. And how do you find the analysis from the SOC? Obviously, it's feature rich, but SOC analysis is important too, right?
It is, and I always laugh about this because normally, like all the SOC alerts, and it's not obviously because of the SOC, but it's because of our end users, will always come after I've left the office. And I've literally so it would happen. Let's say like tonight I'll leave and I'll get home, I'll park the car, and I'll just look at my phone before I go in the house, and just I'll see like in that hour that there's like not loads, but often an alert or two that has been passed on by the SOC. So that what's good about the SOC is that I'm not having to go through and analyze every single incident that's coming into them. So you can go and see that in the ThreatSpike portal, where there's literally thousands of incidents that are reviewed, and then only the ones that are relevant, that are not false positives, are then flagged. And in some cases, let's say if something happens in the middle of the night, the agent at the SOC is able to make a determination that, okay, this is too dangerous, and they are able to sandbox the offending device immediately. So then it's not like that a machine that is exhibiting symptoms of having malware is able to then just freely keep propagating that across a particular site or across networks. It's nipped in the bud immediately, and then you wake up, look at those alerts. Okay, right, we'll get to that, but it's sandboxed, it can't do us any harm. And it really does work. We've seen it many times and it works really well. And we have the odd false positive, but that's often, I think, the SOC analyst being cautious, but that's the right thing to do. I wouldn't want that they're not cautious.
Mm. Well, I've never heard such effusive positive feedback about ThreatSpike. It's great to hear. Thank you very much for that, Adam. And we'll stay in touch in the future as you roll out the email gateway feature, etc.
No, I'm very happy to have this discussion, and it's a product I believe a lot in, so I'm very happy to give my knowledge where I can.
Brilliant. Thanks and have a good day.
You too. Thank